All right, it's Dina and Karen Friedman Agnifilo with Legal AF and Justice Mershon. We spoke about this last week. What was he going to do with immunity question out there, the sentencing question out there? Everything basically got pushed back another week to next week. So Karen led Midas Touch through the actual trial where we got the convictions for Trump, the only of any of his charges that went to trial. But the sentencing kept on getting postponed, and now he's president elect. And so you were the number two at the Manhattan DA's office. Tell us, now on the 19th is the next deadline. What do you think is going to happen? Are we ever going to get like anything final in this case, essentially?
Yeah. So look, I worked at the Manhattan DA's office for 3 decades. I never worked for Alvin Bragg, who's the current prosecutor. I left right before he came in, and so a lot's going on at the Manhattan DA's office right now. Really, what they're doing, and this is from just because I work there and I have experience. I don't really have any inside information. A lot's going on, and really the main thing that's happening is they're trying to see what are their options, what avenues do they have to proceed, because there are really not that many great options. Unfortunately, as you said, there was a trial. The trial ended in May of 2024, and 12 jurors had to find unanimously in a criminal case, beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest legal standard there is. They all agreed that Donald Trump was guilty of 34 felonies, the felony of falsifying business record in the first degree. And that was just a huge victory because it was a complicated case. And then after the trial, the case was adjourned for sentencing and post-verdict motions, which obviously happens in every case. And excuse me, after the trial, the United States Supreme Court came down with new law. They made law in Trump versus United States, creating this new concept of presidential immunity from criminal prosecution, which is a very unusual concept because, as you know, Dina, that doesn't exist anywhere. There's not a single job description in the world, in the United States, I should say, that is immune if you do your job, right? Once you cross that line of committing a crime, you're no longer doing your job, right? Because you committed a crime that's not in your job description. But unfortunately, the Supreme Court had other ideas. Now, luckily, the federal courts have already ruled that twice. Judge Alvin Hellerstein in the Southern District of New York, he ruled when Trump tried to remove or move his case from state court to federal court, he ruled you don't have jurisdiction. It's not appropriate here to do that because your conduct when you paid Stormy Daniels, the porn star, off for her silence through your private attorney, Michael Cohen, and then falsified business records, that was all entirely personal. That had nothing to do with the presidency, even though you wrote some of the checks while you were president and falsified the business records while you were president. So that was never removed to federal court. So everyone would say, oh, great. So Trump v. US doesn't apply to the Manhattan DA case because it's private. It has nothing to do with his job. Well, not so fast. The United States Supreme Court also created this new category of evidence that is inadmissible in trials against former presidents, which is evidence that had to do with or related to being president, right, that were part of his job description, can't come in at the trial, the private trial. Even if the trial is entirely private, you can't use evidence in your trial. Pardon? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so because they created this new law, Judge Mershon, and after the trial, the defense, Trump, through his lawyers, made a motion saying there was all this evidence that came in that was improper and under this new law. And Judge Mershon has to now evaluate the record to see whether there was any evidence that came in that he no longer would have allowed in given this new law. And if so, what happens, right? Was it error so much that it requires reversal of the jury verdict, or is it harmless error? And that's the analysis he has to go through. what has happened is the defense does not want Judge Merchan to even make that determination, and said, we will seek a stay. Okay, they're going to go to an appellate court, or even ask Judge Merchan to stay that, so that he doesn't have to make that decision. And because Trump he's busy, right? He's transitioning to be president, and there's a federal statute that actually even allows for the transition and gives him a office space and a staff and authority to do certain things, so that there's a transition, right? And it's peaceful. So he's got a federal job to do at this moment. And then he obviously will become president. And so the supremacy clause of the United States of America is really what is I think over the shoulder of the Manhattan DA's office, knowing that there's really nothing they can do to interfere with the state court. Can't really do anything to interfere with him, becoming president and that transition. And so they're evaluating their options, because if you know that they're going to try to get a stay and it's not going to happen anyway, and you know that there is going to be he's never getting sentenced before he's president. That's off the table at this point. No one has said that. It's not official. There's still a sentencing date, but I can tell you, I don't usually come out and say things as strongly as I'm saying it. He will not be sentenced November 26th. So, if at all. It's just not going to happen. And so what then? What's next in this unprecedented time? And really, they're evaluating their options. And I don't know that they see any great options, because let's say, just hypothetically, let's say there is not a stay and the judge makes an immunity ruling. Okay, rules whether or not there's immunity. If he rules that, it wasn't harmless error, it shouldn't have happened, then you reverse the conviction, right? And then you have to retry it again, which obviously is not happening in the next 4 years, if at all. And so the sentencing's not happening in that scenario. But let's say he says, oh, no, it was harmless error, and that's that. Then Trump can appeal that, and he can appeal that all the way up to the Supreme Court. And I think, given the fact that he's transitioning to be president, I think it would be very tricky to not only get that done quickly, but get that done at all. And in fact, I think he might be successful and get a stay. So I think they're evaluating their options, and I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. But the problem is, every time I do the flow chart of if this then that, what happens, there aren't many good options for the Manhattan DA's office, given this new law that was created by the Supreme Court, and given the fact that he is about to ascend to the throne of presidency, because it is a throne now, because this case created a king.
Okay, so let me jump in, because I'm like, oh, I'm biting at this, and I'm sure a lot of people
I know.
watch.
Sorry that I went on so long.
No, oh my gosh, you were great. But just, we also should care. Like, I understand that he's in this transitionary period. Possibly the supremacy clause applies. I actually think that we are in obviously a brand new area. And I'm so tired of our side doing the right thing in anticipation all the time. Like, do the things like decide immunity, let him go to the Supreme Court, do the sentencing, let the Supreme Court say, hey, the supremacy clause applies. Hey, you can't put him on probation. I'm so tired of us reining ourselves in so that we are always in compliance, because when Matt Gaetz gets in charge, there's going to be none of that. Like, we don't always have to be the most responsible people in the room, because the end of the day is we don't know if his position as a president-elect is not going to allow to be sentenced, because it's never happened before. And I think your logic is like 100% spot on and legally spot on. But like, I'm so tired of us not going to the outer limits when you have somebody like this. Like, let the Supreme Court stop him. Let the Supreme Court stop him. Like, do not rein yourself in, because fundamentally it is unfair to that jury. We have a jury system in this country for a reason, and they spoke, and their decision should be honored and should be respected. just as much as any other decision in this country. And there's that needs to be fought for too. That needs to have a balance for too. We're not talking about just charging him anymore at this point. I get Jack Smith is going to dismiss it outright, but a jury has spoken. And I think that should have some weight in a democracy and a justice system like we do. And I think Justice Merchan should take that into consideration too. Did that mean nothing anymore? Like, it's his responsibility. He said to the jury the whole time, I'm going to stand by you. I'm going to protect you. Like, if that's the case, you still need to stand by them and protect them, because they spoke. And I think they should have meaning. They should not be so forgotten. And I get it. Like, it may be a lost cause, but like, somebody needs to stand up for that jury that went through all those weeks and were courageous and brave and
the witnesses.
And the witnesses. Yes. All those people like Stormy Daniels who had to go over this all over again. Like, we need to stand up for the fact that like, we put people through a lot, and that should mean something. And Justice Merchan, he could have done this back in September, and he didn't, because he said he didn't want to interfere with the political process. Fine. I took him at his word, but he knew there was a possibility Trump was going to win. And so he knew then that he might just never sentence him. I would hope that he wouldn't have postponed it then at that point, that he should have said, hey, like, at this point, the jury has spoken. It may be too close to the election, but I have to, do what I would do in any other criminal case. If he was so willing to not finish the case, if Trump were to win, he shouldn't have postponed it at all. And I know I'm getting a little fired up, but I really, truly feel like he does not deserve the concessions. And not only because you and I are so like-minded, and we all here at Legal AF are so like-minded, but because we did put those witnesses, like you said, through a lot. We put the jury through a lot. And Justice Merchan, if he doesn't follow through on this, then I think he was wrong to have postponed it until after the election.
Yeah, look, I hear you, and I agree with you in the sense of like a jury verdict and the witnesses does mean something. It's very important. To disturb a jury verdict is a very big deal. And I agree completely that, at least when it comes to the DA's office, they shouldn't concede just because the path is grim. They should fight to the end. Put this on the courts. Put this on the judges and make the judges decide. And that's what I'm hoping. That's my concern. Yeah. I did not like that they said we're evaluating our options and put it over. That really bothered me. And so I really hope they fight this and push it and let the courts decide. Let the court be the one to say we can't do it, or make the defendant get a stay. But put it on the courts. I agree with you. Do not disturb the jury verdict. And the witnesses who have been facing death threats and all sorts of hate and animosity, who were subpoenaed, testified, told the truth. I think if the prosecution didn't stand up for them, I think that would also send the wrong message. So I agree with you. We'll see what happens, right?
No, absolutely. And it's a bad precedent, because there's always people with power. There will always be another man with power, and maybe not the president. But there are some really scary people that office prosecutes. And you cannot send it out that that person, we're not going to fight to the end to make sure what we said was going to happen is going to happen. So yeah, I hope they don't act nice at all. I hope they're taking this time to get extra creative and extra powerful. That's their job. And you and I will report back with hopefully some at least good news that somebody out there other than us is going to, fight to the end about this.
Yeah, I hope so too.
So
we'll keep everyone. We'll keep everyone posted and updated.
We'll keep you updated. Free subscribe, Legal AF. Karen and I also have our own playlist. This will go up on all of our own playlists as well.
In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.